Hello everyone, this is Saurian Target welcoming you back to the next installment in our Carnivores Mods Showcase series, where today we are covering a fantastic mod that not only fleshes out the lesser known areas of the dinosaur planet, but also ties in the mixed bag Carnivores Cityscape with the rest of the franchise. Carnivores: The Middle Islands, a sequel to Carnivores Abandoned Islands and Carnivores Wastelands. Now, I intended to have this video up around Thanksgiving as a holiday treat for you guys, but with my busy schedule, it was a little difficult to pull off. Plus, you guys know how I am with release dates anyway, so let's just be glad this video made it up at all. Now, if this is your first Carnivores Mod Showcase, or if you've just forgotten the format, what I plan to do with the Middle Islands is the same as I've done with the other mods in this series. Just run it through the courses. Analyze everything from the menu designs to the maps, animals, weapons, and anything else this mod has in store for us. And of course, most, if not all, full conversion mods hide secrets and Easter eggs, be it secret messages or animals or locations to discover. And as long as I've found them, I'm showing them off here. So consider this your spoiler warning. If you want to discover everything Carnivores The Middle Islands has to offer for yourself, go download and play the mod first, then come back here. And of course, if all you want to do is play the mod, I've provided a link in the description for you to grab your own copy of the Middle Islands. Now, the release of the Middle Islands that I'm covering today is the Beta 2 version, but I just discovered that there is a Beta 2.5 out for release, so I will cover the primary changes at the end of the video. So, without further ado, let's begin. Now, before we dive into the real meat of the mod, let's place ourselves in the context surrounding the story of the Middle Islands. As you might have noticed, the Middle Islands is closely linked with the lackluster and often maligned fourth Carnivores game, Carnivores Cityscape. Cityscape focuses on the Crater City incident, a time of desperation for Dino Hunt Corp., where the company brought a traveling zoo full of dinosaurs from their planet to Earth. The goal of this traveling zoo was to entice Earth hunters into booking a trip to planet FMM-UV32 by showing off the ultimate big game prize, Dinosaurs, available only from the exotic regions of Dino Hunt Corp's planet. However, as we are all aware, one of the Dino Hunt ships carrying the dinosaurs was overrun by the dinosaurs on board and crashed outside the Earth colony of Crater City, forcing an evacuation and extermination event that left the fate of Dino Hunt Corp uncertain. As many have pointed out, the dinosaurs involved in the Crater City incident do not mirror their classic contemporaries on the dinosaur planet. Thanks for the continuity errors, Sunstorm. These invasive dinosaurs, as designed by the very stylistic paleo artist Todd Marshall, who also designed the dinosaurs of Primal Prey, are much more anatomically correct than the other dinosaurs of the planet, which are modeled after older paleo art styles. This left many of us with quite a few questions. Why do these particular dinosaurs look so different? Well, as the Middle Islands explores, the dinosaurs involved in the Crater City incident were taken from the exotic sector of the planet, an isolated cluster of islands where animals grew apart from those of other sectors, like the Central or Triassic sector. These isolated tropical locations provided excellent homes for the animals. Dinosaurs are already an exotic big game, making these exotic dinosaurs even more unique. Where the dinosaurs of the central sector are typically of an average size, as well as very muscular and fast, the dinosaurs of the exotic sector are either tiny or large, with virtually no in-between middle-sized animals, and are all very slow. As such, these dinosaurs, which, again, are either tiny and non-threatening or large, fat, and slow, made for a much easier capture than, say, a Central Sector Spinosaurus or T-Rex. So, Dino Hunt Corp loaded up as many animals from the exotic sector as they could and brought them to Earth in hopes of bringing more people to their dinosaur planet. Of course, the ship DinoCorp 7 crashes and the rest is history. Regardless, the Middle Islands explores these exotic dinosaurs as actual animals, and not as the invasive monsters deserving of eradication from Crater City. These dinosaurs are unique. They are isolated creatures living in, for lack of a better word, luxury, cut off from the rest of the fast-paced and violent lifestyles of the animals from other sectors. During the Crater City incident, these ill-equipped animals were suddenly thrust into an alien world they were not prepared for. They were scared, hunted, and forced to act violently. This is all many people ever saw of these creatures, but here, on the Middle Islands, they can be explored as prehistoric animals living in their lush alien world. Now we can dive into the mod itself with the first thing players will encounter, the menus. As usual, you'll have to sign Dino Hunt Corp's waiver before embarking on the Middle Islands tour. After the Crater City fiasco, it's understandable that the company did not want to take any more chances with the animals that caused them so many headaches, and cost them so many dollars. After that, you'll move into your account. You'll begin the Middle Islands tour with 50 points, half that of other tours on the planet, perhaps to compensate for the relative ease of hunting these special animals. The menu art immediately sets the stage for what hunters will be dealing with, animals not seen since the Crater City incident. For those who loved, or at least liked, Cityscape, it's an instant rush of nostalgia to interact with these animals again. For those who didn't care for Cityscape, it's at least a neat adventure to flesh out the lesser cared for aspects of the Carnivores lore, and to see these animals in their natural habitat. It's really a win-win. Instead of the typical solo carnivore advertising most tours, the Middle Islands shows off a battle between a pack of Coelophysis and a Giganotosaurus, with a lone Nanotyrannus looking on, perhaps awaiting to feast on the casualties. The menu music seems to be a remix of the Carnivores installation bongos beat blended with the roars of angry dinosaurs. It's an appropriate jungle-themed tune that nicely sets up the tropical world featured in the Middle Islands. Now we move on to the hunt menu, appropriately colored to fit the lush tropical environment of the tour. As with the Abandoned Islands tour, the first location, animal, and weapon cost nothing, allowing hunters a default option to begin building points. Just from a personal standpoint, all of the areas are listed in the order of their prices, and, with the exception of one dinosaur for AI slot purposes, all of the animals are as well, which, as you guessed, is pretty pleasing to my OCD nature. The weapons, however, are a little all over the place, but once you've unlocked everything, the order matters little. The trophy room is a bold departure from the typical trophy rooms seen on various Dino Hunt tours. Gone is the square courtyard of tile, replaced by a sandy plain and walled off on 3 sides by tall, mossy oaks. This helps identify the tour as a wild and tropical destination, and oh, hello, what have we here? That's a good-looking icon. Standing on this icon begins playing the Carnivores Cityscape menu music, which is a nice throwback touch and a tie-in to the mod's source material. Out past the wooden walls into the heart of the desert lie a few crumbling pyramids, flanked by a vast, green, and featureless wilderness. Don't venture too far away from your mounts, as it is easy to get lost out in the empty floodplains. Dino Hunt regulars will note the familiarity of the tour's equipment selection. Camouflage, radar, cover scent, and double ammo all return, although radar now costs 50 points to use. This is likely to challenge novice hunters, as using it will deplete their starting points, forcing them to use the default hunting selections if they wish to use the radar. Each of the equipment items receive a slight recoloring to fit the Middle Islands theme, but overall function remains the same. The Middle Islands features 7 maps, each an exclusive area to the unique exotic sector. The environments on planet FMMUV-32 can already be labeled as exotic, with many alien jungles, temperate forests, frozen tundras, and baking deserts, already teeming with prehistoric alien life. So what sets these areas apart? Well, their unique flora and fauna make up most of that explanation. These areas are all populated by thick, shrub-like trees, many of which appear to bear fruit, which reduces visibility when hunting in this extremely green area. It may be this particular type of foliage and landscape that helped shape the unique animals into what they are. What's also interesting to note is that many of the hunting locations of the exotic sector are all connected in one large landmass, with some of the other separate areas remaining nearby, similar to many of Dino Hunt Corp's reopened areas from the Reloaded tour. This huge sense of interconnectedness and community helps individualize the exotic sector and further explain its unique inhabitants. The first area available at 0 points is the lost village of Opendogu. This uniquely shaped island remains separate from the exotic landmass, easily identifiable by its bizarre structure. The primary hunting estate is an oddly shaped chunk of tropical land that curves out and around into sort of a panhandle, with a tropical coast running parallel back down the primary beach. This slim coastline is flanked by an enormous mountain ridge that runs alongside the entirety of the island, forcing animals and humans into the center areas. This panhandle coast is thick with shrubbery, which makes stalking prey nearly impossible through the dense foliage. This intense assortment of plant life may force smaller animals out into the beach area, where they become visible and vulnerable prey items to hunters along the shoreline or monsters lurking under the surface. Many tall, thin trees populate this area, with the occasional mountain and pond to break up the monotony of the forests. And more than a few strange sand markings occupy the island's terrain. These patterns would not seem so odd if they didn't stand out so much, particularly from the overhead map, and seem distinctly designed rather than random pathways in the sand. Deep in the forest to the northeast, tucked away in the shadow of the mountainous ridge, is a small poacher camp, long abandoned. How sad that poachers even tainted the lush exotic regions of the planet. Regardless, the poachers seem to have met a fitting end, as the area depicts a gruesome final showdown between the poachers and the native dinosaurs, while simultaneously providing a glimpse of what animals await hunters in the depths of these islands. To the east lies the eponymous village, encircled by a towering dinosaur wall, similar to those seen around Fort Siskin or in Manya Jungle. Perhaps it is from these ancient structures that Dino Hunt Corp learned to protect their settlements, although they didn't do a very good job. Inside the wall, several strange open-ceiling structures lay abandoned. Dino Hunt Corp states that these structures, eerily similar in design to human huts, were used to house the families of the ancients, which, given the overall size and window placement, might make some assume that these beings were of about human size and build. But remember, these structures feature open ceilings, which could indicate a much taller creature, and these windows could simply be used to accommodate odd limb proportions. Who knows? Dinosaur bones litter the ground, and living specimens frequently visit the large structure, perhaps in search of food or shelter from outside forces. The next area available at 50 points is the Ancient's Foot, another restricted starting area, similar to the lost village of Opendogu. This island is structured in a more typical island style, with winding, jagged edges and naturally expanding corners. What instantly sets this island apart from the others, aside from literally being set apart, is the intensely thick foliage. Overgrown forests make travel difficult and dangerously slow, not just for animals but hunters as well. A large river bisects the island from the ocean, forcing many animals out into the shoreline, where they, ironically, can seek relief and mobility from the claustrophobic forests. Oddly enough, this island is dotted with similar sand markings as the lost village of Opendogu, with the patterns appearing much more frequently here. To the north, an enormous chunk of barren mountain covers the coast, also providing relief from the thick forests, and allowing animals to journey into more mountainous terrain. Directly to the south of this wasteland, on the eastern side of the river, lies the enormous lake the island is named after, shaped in similar fashion to a theropod footprint. This is not the first footprint-shaped lake on planet FMMUV-32, but it is the most interesting. The shape immediately evokes dinosaur imagery, but the planet is known to house other three-toed animals. Another, clearer freshwater pond lies directly to the south of the footprint lake, and both areas make great residential areas for hungry swarms of tylosaurs. In the southeast corner of the island is a lone hut, completely overtaken by the surrounding forest. This hut appears to be man-made, but it has long since lost its use, as the thick forest has grown up all around and inside of it, perhaps the planet's symbolic way of fighting back against its corporate owner. The next area available at 100 points is Treyfold Fjords, a wonderfully diverse area that, strangely enough, is not located close to the primary exotic sector island chain. Treyfold Fjords is divided into 3 primary sections, all connected via man-made and natural land bridges. These bridges make excellent vantage points, giving hunters obstruction-free views of their upcoming surroundings. The western section is very reminiscent of areas from the central sector, particularly the C1 and Reloaded tours, with open plains, sand dunes, and alien-like palm trees as far as the eye can see. A couple of pyramid-like structures dot this otherwise empty island, their purpose and origin unknown. One lies to the north and another to the south, and a large canyon snakes its way through the center of the island. Luckily, small bridges connect the halves of the island, so hunters and dinosaurs don't have to go all the way around the gorge to make it to the other side. The eastern section is split down the middle by a river, with each half resembling the native exotic sector. Dark green trees and ferns decorate the landscape, with several dirt pathways on the northern island's coast. Each section of this type features a walled-in village, similar to the lost village of Opendogu, complete with these strange structures inside the walls. The northern section is the farthest apart of the 3, and is little more than a vast stone wasteland, blanketed with snow. In the center of the frozen woods is an enormous volcano, the only identifiable landmark on this otherwise barren section. This hunting area is wonderfully unique, allowing hunters to experience multiple hunting zones in one area, from central to exotic to arctic, all with the unique fauna located only in the Middle Islands. The next area available at 300 points is Quagmire Marsh, a very dense and treacherous section of land in the exotic sector. This hunting area is very difficult to maneuver through, as rolling hills, deep forests, and thick blankets of fog easily hide predators of all size. A large, jagged river cuts through the western half of the island, like a gnarled, toothy grin, and a huge freshwater lake sits in the northern section of land, housing several aquatic predators. The rest of the area is comprised of many rolling hills, many of which are covered in fog. The higher hills allow for some good vantage points, which allow hunters to survey the tropical landscape, as well as relieve them from the fog. The mysterious sand patterns are present in Quagmire Marsh as well, further indicating a mysterious artist at work. To the far east, a small mountain range rises up from the planet's surface, easily identifiable from the overhead map. The mostly featureless mountains provide little more than an escape from the thick forests, and a nice place to escape predators if need be. On the edge of the river along the eastern half of land resides a long-abandoned settlement clearly built by humans. The village is guarded by a dinosaur wall, and the remains of the village lie submerged in a flooded pit, now housing hungry tylosaurs instead of intrepid explorers. It is unclear what initially turned this settlement into a ghost town. Perhaps it was the predatory dinosaurs, or perhaps the natural elements such as thunderstorms and flooding, or perhaps it was something of a greater force. The next area available at 500 points is Merciless Swamp, which, oddly enough, doesn't really resemble a swamp. The subtropical Merciless Swamp comprises the eastern side of the Middle Island's landmass, and is much more akin to a wooded flatland than anything else. A thin river cuts through the island, curving its way around in a unique shape to separate the innermost chunk of land from the rest. The eastern beach is an extremely open area, dotted with reed-like plants, and a strange structure along the coast. Reminiscent of an unfinished dinosaur wall, the structure is accessible, but its purpose remains unknown. A deep gorge runs through the beach, and several more tear through the primary woodland of the inland areas. The woods of the Merciless Swamp are thick, but not quite as thick as the Ancient's Foot, and offer some relief with more open areas. The ominous sand patterns return, this time in greater force than ever before, with their origin still remaining anonymous. In the center of the island, one gorge in particular may be where the island got its name. A couple of dead giganotosaurs lay along the edge, inviting only the most curious hunters to venture inside. Deep in the chasm's base, a toxic, odorless gas rises up, killing anything unfortunate to fall in or venture too close. Many other dangerous ravines can be found along the island, but they are easy enough to avoid. The next area available at 700 points is the Bird's Nest.
It's a bird cage.
Well, not quite. The Bird's Nest makes up the tip of the small exotic continent and has not been fully scanned by Dino Hunt Corp. This is an odd decision on the part of the company. Usually, Dino Hunt Corp will hold off on opening unexplored areas, either for financial or safety reasons. Nevertheless, the Bird's Nest is open for business, and it did not get its name for the tapayara that fly overhead. The Bird's Nest is not an overly extraordinary section of land. The southern area is mostly featureless beach connected to the Merciless Swamp. Across the bay, the island turns into thin woodland that grows deeper and deeper as hunters traverse inward. As the forest thickens, strange sounds can be heard in the woods until an enormous clearing reveals the namesake structure. A huge dinosaur wall creates a maze that hunters must explore to reach the inner parts of the nest. And right in the center lies the reason this island has not yet been fully scanned. A monstrous bird guarding its 7 clusters of eggs, clearly killed by something. It is unknown which came first, the nest or the wall. Perhaps the wall came first, built by the ancients as a labyrinth to trap dinosaurs, before it was taken over by this huge creature. Or perhaps the nest came first, then the wall was built around it to keep whatever hatched inside. Regardless, this haunting area offers only a taste of what hunters can expect on the animal roster. The final area available at 900 points is a nightmare. A horrible, inverted, haunted forest. This area exists only to torture selected victims. It's likely that this area does not exist anywhere on the physical dinosaur planet, perhaps on another plane of existence, forced upon only poachers who have desecrated the innocence of the exotic sector and its unique animals, as the nefarious hunters are forced to endure the animals they once hunted in an endless glade of misery. The icy terrain creates a tunnel through which hunters can travel, and there is only one direction to ever head. Through the forests, whispers, and ghost-like laughs, hunters reach the nightmare's dead end, only to be forced to turn back and repeat their venture in reverse, much like the garbled ambient sounds that play in this atrocity. Even some of the animals have been inverted into their nightmarish form. While this nightmare may be a psychological trip reserved for only the worst of the worst, it might also double as an analogy for the Carnivore series' least liked entry, Carnivore Cityscape. The Middle Islands and Cityscape are obviously closely tied due to many elements, and this nightmare may be as close to a cityscape experience as many will ever come. Perhaps an internal struggle for victims of the Crater City incident, eternally forced to live among the animals that potentially killed them, or, in a more meta sense, the game that almost killed the franchise. The nightmare's short, linear terrain mimics Cityscape's short, linear story and gameplay, and the sounds are terrifying and resemble glitches. And the dinosaurs are, of course, pulled right out of Crater City. But whatever this nightmare is, it's an unsettling place, not one that I would openly recommend booking on your next Dino Hunt tour. So what do I think of the Middle Islands area lineup? It's pretty great, but a few maps in particular stand out head and shoulders above the rest. The Lost Village of Opendogu and Treyfold Fjords are my favorite maps. The Lost Village is a wonderfully restrictive area that sets the tone nicely for the entire sector and feels properly enclosed like a starting area should. And Treyfold Fjords is fantastically diverse, allowing hunters to essentially hunt in the central sector, exotic sector, and arctic sector all at once. Nightmare is a fun little bonus map, and the Bird's Nest feels appropriately climactic for such a unique sector. The other maps, however, tend to blend together a little after a while. There's a lot of thick greenery with the occasional mountain, which makes sense given that most of these islands are connected, but it all feels very repetitive. And certain maps, especially the Ancient's Foot, have so many trees that it's almost impossible to hunt there. I think the highest frame rate I ever got on the Ancient's Foot was 6 FPS, and I typically get about 12 to 15 FPS on Carnivores Reborn, which runs like an old stop-motion animation on my computer. All in all, I really like the maps and the concepts behind them, but some of them are a bit too similar for replay value, and unfortunately, some of them are too laggy to play at all. The Middle Islands features 10 huntable animals and 4 ambient animals, a significant amount for such a restricted area. As stated before, the animals dwelling here do not quite match up to the animals of the Central or Triassic sectors from a design standpoint. Built more like birds than large lizards and decorated with spikes and feathers, these animals stand out drastically from the other reptiles on the planet. It is unknown why these animals appear the way they do. Perhaps unseen geological forces helped in shaping these alien creatures. Perhaps they are the result of Dino Hunt's genetic experiments, with this exotic sector used as a testing ground for dinosaurs built with a traveling zoo in mind. Or perhaps the simple isolation factor led these animals to develop differently than the others. Regardless, these animals stand out on the dinosaur planet. Exotic sector inhabitants are either minuscule or monstrous, with virtually no middle-sized animals. All of these animals are extremely slow, likely not used to human invaders encroaching on their territories. This almost makes hunting here seem unfair. Nevertheless, the Middle Islands remains one of Dino Hunt Corp's top-tier tours. The massive flying reptile Tapejara occupies the skies in the exotic sector. Pterosaurs on the dinosaur planet are typically not very large. Pteranodon is about as large as they come, and even the tiny Dimorphodon is not much smaller than the crested flying reptile. However, the exotic Tapejara is noticeably larger than the other flying reptiles on planet FMMUV32, and is much more distinguishable. Sporting an enormous red crest with patterned wings, this large reptile easily stands out in the skies of the Middle Islands. As with most of the large exotic sector animals, Tapejara is not particularly fast, preferring to glide low over its tropical environment. This vocal animal can be seen and heard screeching above the treetops, screeches that were often heard echoing throughout the buildings during the Crater City incident. The ground-based ambient animal is the Heyuania, a genus of oviraptorid dinosaur. As oviraptors are fairly unique dinosaurs, it seems fitting that 2 of the 3 species on the dinosaur planet would be found in the exotic sector. Heyuania is a harmless dinosaur specimen and spends most of its time trotting about and eating from the forest floor. It very closely resembles the other exotic oviraptorid, Rhynchenia, and the 2 are often confused, similar to the Gallimimus and Velociraptor in the central sector. While the dinosaur comes in many sizes, it is not particularly fast, and likely serves as an easy food source for the carnivores of the exotic sector. The amphibious ambient animal of the exotic sector is the Tanystropheus, a snake-like reptile that waddles about through the forest floor. The Tanystropheus is not fast at all, but it doesn't need to be. This animal is not easily frightened because it is not easily harmed. This thick little critter is likely protected by crocodile-like armor, perhaps armor similar to that which adorns the Tyrannosaurus of the central sector. Unlike many animals of the dinosaur planet, the Tanystropheus is at home both on land and in the water. When it's not crawling through the shrubbery, this long-necked reptile paddles around at the bottom of shallow rivers and streams. The Tanystropheus likely uses its long, snake-like neck and sharp, needle-like teeth to snag fish as they swim past its elongated form. With its impenetrable scales and amphibious lifestyle, the Tanystropheus is one of the most unique creatures on not just the exotic sector, which is already saying something, but also the entire dinosaur planet. Rounding out the elemental environments of air, earth, and water is the aquatic reptile Tylosaurus, a creature built in the vein of other sea monsters like the Mosasaurus. This creature is one of the few purely aquatic creatures discovered so far on planet FMMUV32, occupying the many freshwater lakes and ponds scattered about the exotic sector. During the Crater City incident, the animal even managed to make its way to Earth, where it hid in ponds and sewers away from the many agent versus dinosaur battles. The first huntable dinosaur available at 0 points is the tiny ornithopod Orodromius. Like the other dinosaurs of the exotic sector, the novice rank Orodromius is built in a much more anatomically correct manner than the other dinosaurs of the planet. This little herbivore is a skittish animal, trotting about while constantly keeping an eye open for predators. If startled, Orodromius will dart away at quick speeds, as it is one of the only fast animals in the sector, and its light green coloring helps it disappear into the foliage of its exotic home. This chatty little dinosaur occasionally stops to peck at the ground, but always remains vigilant. The Orodromius's call is a shrill, bubbly chirp, and it often sounds off to listen for others of its kind, even though it is often found alone. Perhaps the tiny dinosaurs prefer to remain spread out to cover more ground, and simultaneously keep their distance should one of their brethren become ambushed. Because it is so small and quick, it is very weak, and uses its huge eyes to constantly watch out for predators, using ambush tactics, likely the only way to subdue these tiny dinosaurs. The next dinosaur available at 15 points is the Novice rank Protoceratops. Where other larger ceratopsians, like the massive Triceratops and the, mediocre Chasmosaurus, rule their respective chains in the central sector, the tiny Protoceratops cowers in the shadows of the exotic sector. Lacking in horns and size, the little Protoceratops has nothing to defend itself with. As such, it scampers through the undergrowth in its tropical home, constantly looking about for intruders, much like the Orodromius. However, unlike the more solitary Orodromius, Protoceratops can often be found together in small groups, constantly looking over each other's shoulders. Because the Protoceratops is basically defenseless, aside from its intimidating red eyes, it has to run away if provoked, and because it is constantly moving about to avoid carnivores, you will probably hear one of the little dinosaurs breathing before you see it. And seeing a Protoceratops is a hard thing to do. The little animals blend in well with their green surroundings, and typically move from shrub to shrub to stay camouflaged and avoid larger predators like Nanotyrannus. The next dinosaur available at 25 points is the Novice rank Kentrosaurus, a medium-sized relative of the Stegosaurus from the central sector. Visually, the two dinosaurs are very similar, with the Kentrosaurus sporting similar colors to its larger cousin. However, where the large Stegosaurus of the central sector can bolt away at high speeds if startled, or attack if it's the jungle-oriented variant from the abandoned islands, the Kentrosaurus has not been graced with a quick getaway speed. This dinosaur is miserably slow. Even human hunters are able to easily catch up with a fleeing Kentrosaurus. Dino Hunt Corp scout drones, which are notoriously slow, were used in surveying the Middle Islands, and were able to easily keep pace with fleeing Kentrosaurs. As such, the dinosaur has developed a much more wicked backside than its larger relative. The Kentrosaurus's back features small plates along the front end, which give way to menacing spikes down the back and tail. This herbivorous dinosaur even features immense scapula spikes jutting out from its muscular shoulders. This gives the Kentrosaurus much more offensive and defensive capabilities, and makes it one of the only armored dinosaurs in the Middle Islands. However, perhaps thanks to its pea-sized brain, it has not learned to use these defenses against human hunters. The next dinosaur available at 50 points begins the intermediate rank, Rhynchinia. A brightly colored and heavily decorated dinosaur, this oviraptorid dinosaur is your first chance at hunting carnivores in the exotic sector. Now, those of you who played Cityscape might be a little confused, for during the Crater City incident, this animal was labeled as Oviraptor, a much more well-known dinosaur. And for a while, this specimen was the only known oviraptorid dinosaur on the planet. However, since further exploration of the exotic sector led to the discovery of Heyuania, and another dinosaur labeled Oviraptor was discovered in the central sector, proper type classification was called into order. This makes Oviraptor unique among FMMUV32 reptiles, since it is the only animal represented by two different species on the dinosaur planet, Rhynchinia mongoliensis of the Crater City incident, and Oviraptor philoceratops of the central sector. The social Rhynchinia is much more bird-like, sporting bright colors and prominent feather decorations all over its body, where the more solitary Oviraptor is smaller, with a more simplistic design, and is simply covered in a thin layer of fluffy down. Appropriate that the more extravagant specimen be found in the exotic sector. Like Heyuania, Rhynchinia trots around its tropical home searching for food. However, if provoked, this feathery dinosaur will attack, although at a very slow pace. Just as during the Crater City incident, these small, plump animals can easily be outpaced. But if they manage to catch a hunter, their bone-crushing beaks and sharp claws lead to vicious and fatal wounds. The next dinosaur also available at 50 points is the Coelophysis, the most irritating little dinosaur ever spawned. When not causing eardrums to bleed, the intermediate rank Coelophysis scampers about its tropical home, far away from the hustle and bustle of city life. During the Crater City incident, Coelophysis was one of the most common dinosaurs, as their small size allowed for many to be captured and transported at a time. As it was during that fiasco, the Coelophysis is, of course, one of the most invasive and widespread dinosaurs on the dinosaur planet, ranging from the central sector to the Triassic sector and even here to the exotic sector. The Coelophysis is one of the most common dinosaurs discovered. Where the variant found in the central and Triassic sectors are very similar, if not the same, the Coelophysis in the exotic sector is, as expected, a bit more stylistic. A broad array of gold and maroon patterns decorate its tiny hide in sharp contrast to the emerald green and white of the more centralized variants. This Coelophysis' social activity varies depending on the circumstances. It's not as social as the central specimen, but not quite as solitary as the Triassic specimen. However, like the other animals of the sector, the Coelophysis is extremely slow, but its minuscule size makes it very difficult to hit, or even see approaching. As such, the Coelophysis excels as an ambush predator, using its small size to sneak up on its targets and potentially overwhelm them with numbers. The next dinosaur available at 100 points is the Nanotyrannus. The advanced rank Nanotyrannus is unique for many reasons, one of which is that it fills the role as the only medium-sized carnivore in the sector, a role in which it thrives. This carnivore boasts predatory color patterns, similar to the Velociraptor and Carnotaurus of the central sector, and as the only dinosaur of its size, it effectively rules its world with an iron claw, towering over smaller predators like Rhynchinia, but maintaining the size and speed necessary to outmaneuver larger predators like Suchomimus. That said, its relative speed is not that effective. As with many of the animals in the exotic sector, the Nanotyrannus is rather slow and can easily be outpaced by fit hunters. However, as was the case in Crater City, several hunting Nanotyrannus may unintentionally form a pack to hunt down larger or more evasive targets. The animal typically seems to be a solitary hunter, but if multiple Nanotyrannus find a food source, they may all attack it in an unorganized pack to take down their prey. The Nanotyrannus is also unique in that its origin remains a mystery on the dinosaur planet. As many of you may know from my Indominus Rex showcase and even my Carnivores Genesis Ideas video, I like to think that the Nanotyrannus of FMMUV32 is a hybridized dinosaur. Dino Hunt Corp's first attempt at genetically creating dinosaurs as a test run for their mutated dinosaurs later on. While this theory is not canon, I like to think that the Nanotyrannus was created using genetic material from the planets Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus, using the Tyrannosaurus as a base for the body design and the Velociraptor for the size and coloration. Perhaps Dino Hunt Corp bred these dinosaurs for the specific purpose of their traveling zoo, as a slower, more bite-sized, no pun intended, Tyrannosaur for consumers to enjoy. After their roadshow disaster, Dino Hunt Corp released their creations into the wilds of the exotic sector, a relatively safe and luxurious release point for animals bred in captivity. This genetic tampering may explain why all of the animals in the exotic sector look and behave the way they do, but regardless, that's just a theory. The Nanotyrannus may be a regular dinosaur found on the planet, but come on, where's the fun in that? The next advanced rank dinosaur available at 250 points is the Suchomimus, the sector's resident and appropriately sized Spinosaur. This monstrous carnivore patrols the sector's many waterways, catching whatever animals come by seeking a drink. The Suchomimus likely feeds on the fish of the watery exotic sector, but probably avoids the larger water dwellers like Tylosaurus. However, other aquatic animals, like the Tanystropheus, are likely on the menu, and it would likely be a ferocious battle between the armored, snake-like Tanystropheus and the monstrous, crocodile-like Suchomimus. Man, that would be cool to see. Anyway, as some of you might notice, the Suchomimus of the exotic sector doesn't quite look like the variant found in the sewers of Crater City. There could be a number of reasons for this. The Suchomimus that were forcibly placed on Earth were known for being actively breeding in the sewers. Perhaps the ones that survived the majority of the Crater City incident were only juveniles and subadults, with the specimens living in the exotic sector representing the fully grown Suchomimus. Perhaps these are genetically tampered variants, designed solely for life in the exotic sector, or perhaps unseen forces in this sector of the planet play a role in shaping the aesthetic of these creatures. Regardless, the Suchomimus rules the waterways of its tropical home as a powerful, crocodile-like predator. The next advanced ranked dinosaur available at 300 points is the massive sauropod Alamosaurus. Sauropods are not necessarily a rarity, but they are not an overly abundant dinosaur species on the planet, and it is even rarer that Dino Hunt Corp offers a specimen as a huntable option. Aside from Amargasaurus in the central sector and Amphicelius in the abandoned islands, Alamosaurus is one of the rare huntable sauropods. This dinosaur is, like the others of the sector, more anatomically correct than most dinosaurs of the planet, but it is very stockily built, with massive, pillar-like legs, a thick tail, and a powerful neck adorned with its relatively small head. Despite its massive size and advantageous lookout abilities, the dinosaur has extremely poor senses. In fact, the animals usually don't notice other animals until they are right on top of them, or rather, underneath them. These huge herbivores may not notice much, but if aggravated, they will trample intruders underfoot. The Alamosaurus constantly plods about its tropical home, occasionally stopping to rest, but primarily moves from eating place to eating place, clearing out huge expanses of foliage in the process. These animals likely migrate all over the exotic sector, from the thick forests to the hot jungles and even the colder Arctic regions in their never-ending search for food. And it's probably best that they keep moving in order to avoid becoming a meal to the apex predator of the sector. The next dinosaur available at 500 points begins the expert rank, the mighty Giganotosaurus. Alright, confession time. When I first played Cityscape and saw the Giganotosaurus on the main menu, I thought it was an Allosaurus, and when I got to the aromatherapy level, which is the last one, and I was playing as an agent, I still thought it was an Allosaurus, and I beat the level and got really excited that I had finally hit the higher tiered carnivores, and was so ready to see what the game threw at me next. Then the game ended. But anyway, Giganotosaurus, the alpha predator of the exotic sector. This enormous animal is decorated in jagged spikes and an armored hide. Not quite as impenetrable as the Tyrannosaurus of the central sector, but the Giganotosaurus is one of the few animals in the sector that can take quite a beating before going down. In fact, Dino Hunt Corp warns clients to use extreme firepower when hunting these beasts. The Giganotosaurus behaves like a heavily armored, powerful predator as well. If provoked, the huge carnivore will roar, similar to the Tyrannosaurus, before charging at a moderately slow speed. Larger specimens can catch up to a human hunter, but hunters can actually outpace smaller Giganotosaurs. Of course, no one wants to run out of ammunition in a Giganotosaurus-infested area, whether or not the creatures are slow, so be sure to come packing lots of firepower and ammunition when hunting these mammoth predators.
Expedition 2272 to Dino Hunt Corp. I repeat, Expedition 2272 to Dino Hunt Corp. Do you copy?
Dino Hunt Corp. What is the problem, Expedition 2272?
We're being attacked by Gigas, and we've managed to barricade ourselves within the Opendogu village. That seemed to keep them out for now.
Expedition 2272. We will send reinforcements to your area as soon as possible. Stay in your vicinity and don't try anything rash.
Affirmative, Dino Hunt Corp. Wait. What is that? Do you hear that?
What is happening, Expedition 2272?
What is that? It's some sort of giant bird. It's not attacking us, just the Gigas.
Expedition 2272, what is going on?
It's okay. Nobody was hurt. Send us a ship to take us back.
Request granted. Sending one now. The final animal available to unlock at 1,000 points is the legendary cryptid of the American Southwest, the mighty Thunderbird. The Thunderbird of planet FMMUB32 resembles a monstrous Archaeopteryx of the planet's polar regions, or a huge microraptor from the abandoned islands. This monstrous beast thunders across the tropics of the exotic sector, occasionally stopping to flap its massive wings, likely to blow away any obstructive foliage or invasive animals. Despite its terrifying appearance, the Thunderbird is a very timid creature. If startled, the beast takes off at lightning speeds, using its powerful wings to propel itself across entire islands within seconds. This, coupled with the creature's immense health, makes it very hard to hunt. In fact, the Thunderbird is the only creature on the tour that I have not yet managed to bring down. Firing an extremely loud weapon within earshot of multiple Thunderbirds can lead to instances like this. It is unknown from where this large bird originated. Has it always resided in the exotic sector? Did it migrate from another section of the planet, or perhaps another planet altogether? Is it a genetic creation from Dino Hunt Corp? Not even the planet controlling company knows much about it. It even lacks an official ranking, although I'd probably place it at intermediate rank, being a pretty skilled game warden myself. Perhaps the ancients knew more about this legendary creature, but whatever information they had on these powerful yet peaceful animals is long gone. So what do I think of the dinosaur roster of the Middle Islands? I think it's fantastic. Orodromius is one of the only small thescelosaurs on the dinosaur planet, and Protoceratops is a nice departure from the larger ceratopsians, while remaining in the family tree. And putting Protoceratops in the same mod as the franchise's first iteration of Oviraptor was a stroke of genius. The Alamosaurus is a wonderful addition as a mid-tier boss, and another huntable sauropod is always a welcome thing. All of the cityscape animals are painstakingly faithful to their original designs, from the models to the calls to their slow speed and even the Giganotosaurus' eating animation. Although I'm not sure why the Suchomimus is different. It's not bad by any means, just curious that it doesn't use the cityscape model or skin. Of course, there are a few glitches here and there. The Tapayara's crest and wings disappear from certain angles, and the Alamosaurus has a few animations out of place, but the overall construction and attention to detail of the animals here far outweighs any of these minor glitches. The Middle Islands tour features 7 weapons, relying primarily on recognizable firearm variants in this exotic world. Many of the weapons are familiar to Dino Hunt Corp veterans, while a few of the more expensive options are more in line with what the company issued during the Crater City incident. This makes for some odd choices in a hunting tour. Perhaps Dino Hunt is hoping to capitalize on the exotic of the exotic sector by providing some truly unique hunting weapons for those willing to pay the price. The first weapon available at 0 points is a basic single-shot rifle, even though it's modeled after an over-under shotgun. A very effective starting weapon, the rifle packs enough power to drop most novice rank animals in 1 to 2 shots, and fires quick enough to drop the larger carnivores like Nanotyrannus or Suchomimus in just a few shots. However, being a single-shot rifle, it needs to reload after every shot, so time your shots accordingly if you find yourself surrounded and in need of a defensive onslaught. The next weapon available at 50 points is the classic X-Bow. At this point, you know whether or not hunting with the X-Bow is for you. The weapon's 2 targeting pins make it a challenge to use, but downing a charging carnivore with your last bolt is a satisfying accomplishment. However, the bow is not recommended against fleeing herbivores, which occupy most of the novice rank animal slots, since their skittish nature makes them evasive targets for the weapon's slightly annoying firing pins. The next weapon available at 125 points is the classic C2 pump-action shotgun. The shotgun is a welcome return addition to the weapons roster. Its pump action prevents it from slaughtering every animal in sight, giving the slower animals of the exotic sector a fighting chance. Yet its immense firepower at close range gives it tremendous stopping power. Perhaps it's quite appropriate the Dino Hunt Corp decided not to use the drum magazine shotgun issued during the Crater City incident. The shotgun's buckshot decreases damage over distance, so it's best to save it as a close combat backup weapon. The next weapon available at 135 points is the sniper rifle. Introduced on the very first tour, the sniper rifle has appeared in some form on almost every Dino Hunt tour since. Typically, the company describes their sniper rifle as a long-range killing machine, not recommended against charging carnivores. However, many of the small herbivores in the exotic sector are too fast and well camouflaged to effectively hunt with a sniper rifle, and the larger herbivores pack too much health or protective armor to be brought down by the sniper, which, ironically, makes the slow-paced charging carnivores the best sniping targets. However, when placed in those situations, hunters have better options than a sniper rifle, which renders this weapon pretty obsolete on the Middle Islands tour. The next weapon available at 150 points is the Heavy Machine Gun, the older brother to the Light Assault Rifle, issued during the Crater City incident. This powerful weapon strays from the typical hunting fare usually issued by Dino Hunt Corp. In favor of mowing down dinosaurs with extreme ease. This brutish firearm can down almost any animal in just a few shots, and its high ammo count allows hunters to tear through the islands and rack up a high trophy count in the process. Its long reload time makes it risky to use against large packs of animals, but its quick rate of fire makes up for its shortcomings. The next weapon available at 250 points is the X-Rifle. One of the few weapons left over from the Crater City incident, the X-Rifle is an experimental explosive weapon that fires blue blasts of energy instead of regular ammunition. The splash damage of the X-Rifle made it dangerous in a close-quarter situation, but it also made it effective against packs of Coelophysis or Winchinia without wasting ammunition. Since the Crater City incident, Dino Hunt Corp appears to have perfected the weapon's design, giving it a slimmer barrel with more functional iron sights and no splash damage. This, coupled with its fast rate of fire and immense firepower, makes the X-Rifle a fantastic weapon against the larger animals of the sector, even if a little overkill for everything else. The final weapon available at 500 points is the biggest and baddest weapon on the Middle Islands tour, a scoped missile launcher. In the vein of high-powered, military-grade weapons issued during the Crater City incident, Dino Hunt Corp allows hunters to take a portable, scoped missile launcher with them in hunts on the exotic sector. This weapon can down almost any animal in one shot, but requires a long reload time, making hunters somewhat vulnerable during the downtime. However, the weapon's huge damage and blast radius make it a perfect weapon for causing immense destruction, but brings up the question of why Dino Hunt Corp would allow such a destructive weapon on their planet's safaris. So what do I think of the Middle Islands weapon lineup? It's decent, interesting to say the least. A shotgun is always welcome when hunting carnivorous dinosaurs, but at this point, the X-Bow and sniper rifle have about stayed their welcome. The basic rifle is a very fun weapon to hunt with, perfectly balanced in terms of damage and reload speed, and the heavy machine gun is very fun and a nice throwback to the militarized weapons of Cityscape, even if it strays a bit from the hunting genre. The other weapons live up to the exotic sector's standards. The X-Rifle is a great throwback, but I personally feel as though it should have been the final weapon to unlock. The missile launcher is neat, in similar vein of the heavy machine gun, but it feels a little too powerful at times. And like the grenade rifle of the Abandoned Islands tour, is something Dino Hunt Corp would likely not use on their property. Now, there are not too many changes to the Middle Islands in Beta 2.5, although the ones that exist are quite prominent. There are a couple of reasons why I chose to cover the Beta 2 more extensively than Beta 2.5. One of them being, admittedly, that I had most of this video already done by the time I realized that there was a Beta 2.5. And the other is that I honestly prefer Beta 2 over the newer release. But let's get into the changes so you guys can see for yourselves. Much of the mod is primarily the same as far as areas and weapons go. The first big change is that the Orodromius has been completely removed and replaced with the Winchinia in the starting dinosaur slot. I personally find this a pretty odd choice. It renders the typically vicious Winchinia, known during the Crater City incident for its abrasive battle cry and fearless attacks, very cowardly here. An odd change of character, for sure, which also makes the Central Sector Oviraptor the only Oviraptor dinosaur on planet FMMUV32 that is actually dangerous. With the removal of Orodromius, the animal roster has been reduced to 9 huntable creatures, and the Giganotosaurus has been moved down to the Ceratosaurus AI slot, meaning it is not the fearless monster it once was, in order to make the Thunderbird a much more fearsome animal. Now this is great for the Thunderbird, as it can now actually attack the hunter, but I personally feel that this upgrade is at the expense of some of the Cityscape animals, which I believe to be the primary focus of the mod. The Suchomimus also received a proper eating animation with this update, which is pretty cool to finally see in action. Also, all of the animals are much faster than they were in the Beta 2 release, which means certain hunting tactics relying on the animals being slow no longer work. Now, these changes are by no means terrible, but these are simply the reasons why I personally prefer the Beta 2 release to this current version, but you guys can decide which one you like for yourselves. So there you go guys, Carnivores the Middle Islands, one of my absolute favorite Carnivores mods. It focuses on a centralized theme of the exotic sector of the planet. It offers an explanation and exploration of the lesser cared for animals of the planet, and, most importantly, is so fun to play. Carnivores is always a great hop in and play game, and the Middle Islands is one of the most fun out there. If you liked Cityscape, it's a great way to interact with these unique animals again, without having to actually slog through Cityscape itself. And if you didn't like Cityscape, it's a great chance to experience the animals in the proper Carnivores hunting format. The concept is just brilliant, and I don't think the execution could have been any better. I feel that this is a very underrated mod, so guys, whether or not you enjoyed Cityscape, go try out the Middle Islands. I think it's well worth a playthrough or two. Also guys, the new update for Carnivores Ice Age is coming out very soon. Dino Destroyer has been covering the update as a beta tester over on his channel, and it looks very exciting. So, of course, we're going to be covering it once it's available on the App Store. So look forward to that. And of course, thanks as always for watching these videos, guys. Well, I had written in the script to thank you guys for 600 subscribers, but we just hit 700, which is something I just cannot believe. It's incredible. Thank you guys so much for all the views and likes and comments and support and just general feedback. It's getting more and more difficult to reply to each comment, but all of the great interaction with you guys is why I do this. This isn't my job and I don't have a ton of time to do it, but it's something I really enjoy. So as long as you guys enjoy it and keep watching this content, I'll keep making it. And be sure to let me know what mods you guys want to see covered during the holiday break. Cast your votes down below. We can do Jurassic Park Hunter, a very cool mod that obviously focuses on a Jurassic Park themed Carnivores style game. Or we can do Carnivores Migration, a fantastic mod by my good friend Ophi, featuring some beautifully vibrant maps and dinosaurs. Or we could even do Carnivores Modern Days. Man, I just really love that mod. It's so novel and fun, and I can't wait to show it off. Whatever you guys want to see, let me know. Be sure to leave your vote down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This has been an incredible journey so far, and I will see you guys next time.